Welcome, my friends. This is Maniacal Incorporated, and you join me in the war room as we prepare to do battle in High Strategy Oradros. This is a new grand strategy game from Iron Boar Labs, who very kindly sent me a key to check out the game. And this video is going to be an overview of the core mechanics and a how to play. And if you'd like to see a campaign, I have just finished one, and that'll be put up on the Maniacal R&D channel. So this is going to be a how to play, and if you want to see what a full campaign looks like, you can check that out over on the other channel. There'll be a link in the description. So High Strategy Oradros is a grand strategy game, and the devs were seeking to basically create an abstraction of something like CK3. So they were looking to remove a lot of the bells and whistles. There's no marriages here, there's no befriending people, there's no assassination plots. Your wife isn't going to buy you a cat that you can then name Pangerbone that discovers secrets about people in your court. Instead, you have a list of decisions that you can make per turn. You can make one per turn, and then the game moves on. So we're going to take a look at that now in a moment. This is one of the greatest elevator pitches ever. It is a minimalist grand strategy game set in an original low fantasy world of hoplites and dinosaurs. You had me at dinosaurs. No micromanagement, only decisions, and all 40 playable realms have distinct starting conditions and goals. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new game. This is the overview map. Here is Klastos, who I play as in the campaign over on the other channel. We can see that each of these factions has a difficulty rating. Easy, medium, hard, and we should see down here somewhere is... Where's it gone to? Nuts. So for the process of this video, I'm going to just click on these guys. Chimaris. So here we have a bit of lore about them. This does not really impact the game in any way, make, shape, or form, but it is a world that has a lore and that explains the various different factions that exist. Here is our leading ascendancy. This is, you can think of it as your kingdom's race or species. So the Kemet belong to an ancient civilization that has lived in comparative isolation, cut off from others by sea and desert. And this is the leading religion, the leading sect. And we're going to see more about that now in a few moments. Our ancestry is very important, or the ancestries in the kingdom are important for determining your army composition. And this is our starting army. We have 3 units of slingers, and we have Hornbrow cavalry, and we have 500 turns. So if we just take a look at some of the other factions, they have a different amount of time. Klastos has 300 turns and are easy, and Chimaris are also easy, but they have 500 turns. And if you want to, you can click here to turn on a tutorial. So once we start the game, we are brought to the world map, the map of Oradros. The starting conditions for the factions are static. So much like, we'll say, CK3 instead of Stellaris. There's no procedural generation. These factions are the exact same from one run to the next. They start with the same amount of regions under their control. The regions are the same type, and the victory conditions are the same. And these are the victory conditions, these towns or cities with spirals and spikes coming out of them. So there's a victory condition, there's a victory condition, there's one, there's one. I think there's probably going to be 7. So we're not going to find victory conditions way over here, because we've started down in this location. There is 7 victory conditions surrounding us. If we take one of them, we will get a bronze medal. If we take 3 of them, we will get silver. And if we take 5, we will get a gold tier victory. And if you ever control 5 of them, it automatically brings the game to an end. Now very quickly, we'll just click on some of the neighboring cities around us. Here is the Sun Gazers, so that's the capital of the Sun Gazers. This is the capital of the Bridge League. And down here we have the Phyrexian League. Now you can see here's our capital, and here's these dotted lines connecting we'll say our capital, Karazoi, connecting it to Amos, and then these lines connect it down. So we have a border with the guys down here, we have a border with these guys, and we have a border with these guys. So I'm going to start with these panels across the bottom. These borders allow for diplomacy, and this is the diplomacy screen. The only thing that you can do on the diplomacy screen is observe the stance of your neighbors towards you. So these guys are cautious, aggressive, and aggressive. And we can set our stance towards our neighbors, let's call them. We're basically in a constant state of war. We don't need to declare war to cross into enemy territory or anything like that. We're in a constant state of war plus a constant state of friendship. So I'm going to click on the Sun Gazers. And when we've done battle with them, it will show us the composition of the last army that we fought. Here we have the rather interesting ratings. We've coexist. And this is the AI's willingness to accept your border with them. A higher number means that we don't have anything that they want. So if we have a low number, the Bridge League will not coexist with us under any circumstances. We have territory that they want. They are going to attack us. And these guys then are the exact same. Threat is a measure of how much of a threat they basically are to us. So the higher the number, the more confident the AI is that it could defeat us in combat. So the Phyrexian League will not coexist with us and is a substantial threat to us. However, they do trust us as well. A high number means that we've done kind of trade with them and they trust us. So this is a rather bizarre relationship. Trust is fairly low. They're not confident they can beat us, but they want things that we have. So these numbers are going to help you to decide your stance against the enemy. There are, as we can see, 5 stances. The first one is, whoops, I've totally forgotten to set a stance. And the first time that you meet a new neighbor, that you build a new border with somebody, the stance is not going to be set. So there's no default stance. And quite often you'll forget to actually set it until there's a reason to do so. We have cautious. So this is going to make spy actions by the enemy more difficult. Friendly means that trade is going to generate more wealth between the two factions. Defensive means if they attack us, they're going to have to contribute more forces. And aggressive means that when we attack them, they're going to have to contribute more forces to the defense. Now, as we go down through combat, that's all going to become more clear, but obviously if there is a victory goal and it is deep within enemy territory and you're going to be doing a lot of wars against them, you might want to set your stance to aggressive. They might set their stance to defensive. On the other hand, if you're in good relations with somebody and you have no intention of going to war with them or you don't need any of the territory that they have, you might want to set it to cautious to prevent them from spying, or maybe friendly to encourage trade. So getting out of that window, and quite sometimes confusingly, you'll see there in the bottom left that right-click is to go back. Our next one is innovations. This shows our current units. And these innovations are things that they can learn by doing combat. So basically, every time that our units are part of our army and engage in combat, they will start to level up. They will fill in these lines down the side. Not every unit can be upgraded. There's one unit called the Great Tyrant, which is basically a T-Rex. And yeah, T-Rexes, they don't become more experienced at being T-Rexes over time or with combat, whereas the Hornbrow Cavalry, they do become more experienced. So our hoplites can gain +5 on mountain, +5 on desert. Once this reaches its completion point, you'll get to pick which one of these you want to choose and upgrade the army with. The next one is the army composition itself, which can be quite confusing when you look at it for the first time. So each city on the map has a terrain type. and it is one of these terrain types down the left-hand side. This column here tells us how good our current army composition is at fighting in each of those terrain types. So we have an army that is currently built for fighting in deserts and mountains. Jungles, we would actually suffer a penalty. We're also being told that we have 3 units of whatever's up here, slingers, and we have 2 units of whatever's up here, hornbrow cavalry. That is what our army consists of at the moment. So if we wanted to maybe rebuild the army, we want to go in against, let's say we wanted to go in against an Acropolis for some reason, what we would do, because this is the shield bearers column, they're the only ones that we have that can fight in the necropolis. We would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So our entire army would now be shield bearers. The current composition, the new composition, plus 25, and it will take 10 turns before that army can actually be deployed to the field. So if we were to click confirm, that would start to reconstitute the army. We wouldn't want to do that. We could, if we wanted to, check about maybe, okay, something that can fight in mountains, but also has the ability to, we'll say, defend deserts. So that's actually over here. And it's going to take less turns because 2 of the units that are already in the army, these 2, are staying there. So I'm actually only just changing these 3. So this is the old composition, or the current composition, and this is the new composition. And you will, as the size of your empire changes, and as the territories of your enemies, as your borders with your enemies change, you will need to reconstitute your army from time to time. It's also worth noting that you can only have 5 units, and as your population changes, some of these units might actually disappear, or you might get more. So you might have 6 columns, or 7 or 8 columns to pick from. It'd be probably unusual to have that many. But I have had 6 columns from time to time. I have had an army, we'll say, with slingers in it, and then the population group supporting the slingers fell so low that I lost 2 or 3 units. So you will have to come back here. You'll get a pop-up. Or not a pop-up exactly, but a little warning over here if that ever happens. This is our religion screen. And what I might actually do are our ritual policies. And what I'll actually do is show the population screen first of all. On the left is our ancestries. Each one of these represents 1 unit of population. So we have 46 Kemet, 10 Achillean, and 7 vagabond tribes. And as you can see, the Kemet, we have slingers and hornbrow cavalry that are in our army. And because this is brown, it's indicating that we could have shield bearers as well. Whereas down here, this is a light color indicating that we do not have access to flaxmen. If we ever, and I'm not too sure what the cutoffs are, but if we were to ever increase the representation of the vagabond tribes in our kingdom, we would gain access to flaxmen, and we could recruit flaxmen. And then these guys have hoplites, which is in brown, so we could actually train hoplites. And if the Achillean population was ever to fall low enough, we would lose them. We also have archers and crab colossus, the single largest animal used in warfare. Their utility is limited by the fact that there is no such thing as training a crab colossus, so the crab colossus cannot be upgraded. And it seems to be quite strong at fighting in swamps. Now I'll get on to dealing with how we would change the composition of our population shortly. Conquest, that's a great way to do it. But that determines the composition of our army. That determines what units we can recruit. The happiness of these factions is dependent on the sects that they worship. The largest one is the Sun Pantheon, and the smallest, worshipped by only one of these units, is Ketras. Now at the moment, if we click on these again, you'll see that they have 3 rituals each. And if we promote these rituals, it will make them happy. And if we don't promote them, anti-promote them, then it will make them sad. So we can see that these guys have mummification, grave gifts, and guardian statues. And this plus means that we are actually promoting all of those, whereas the minus here indicates that we are not promoting rite of infection. So now that we know all that, we can go back to our screen here, and we can see that we are promoting whatever this is, mummification, and we are suppressing immolation. And here's where we are suppressing, what is it? Rite of infection, and we are promoting the guardian statues. So you have to promote and suppress at the same time. So what we could do is we could clear this. We could say we actually want to promote sacred abominations. And so we would click here and promote sacred abominations. I can't now leave. I probably can, but it's not going to promote this until we start suppressing something as well. So we'll suppress that because only one person follows it. Or it belongs to a sect that is only followed by one person. Now this part can actually be handled by the AI, but after a while it becomes easy enough to understand I should probably promote these ones that are followed by a lot of people and demote these ones that aren't followed by a lot of people. I imagine this is going to be difficult in smaller starts, or when you have a smaller group of sects or religions to pick from. And I think we're on to our final screen, which is the load menu. So there you go. That's our 5, would we call them panels? We've diplomacy, we've innovations, military innovations, we have the military composition, we have sect rituals, we have our population, and we have the save and exit screen. So with all that out of the way, we can now actually get a better understanding of what's happening in our cities. If we click on our capital, we will see that we have 10 rows here on the side. We have at the bottom, these are trappers, these are farmers, fruit farmers, crab ranchers. And it's not telling us what those actually are. We have 4 population here. Here's the population that's growing, and when it grows, it's going to activate that job. The cities are static, the starting conditions are static, these jobs are static. No matter how many games you play, every time that you come back and look at Karazoi, this is going to be the list of jobs that it has. They do something slightly different, plus 8 wealth per turn, plus 7 military, plus 8 military. And each unit of population has a job, which is determined by their position here on the side. This arrow represents the development level, and that is basically how many free slots that we have to upgrade. So we can fill here, we can fill here, we can fill here, and if we want to get a job here, or if we want to get a population here, we have to increase the development by 1. Each of these population units has a religious belief, which is Horamus, and a ancestry, which is Kemet. So that's where all that data was coming from on the previous screen, and we can see the same out here. We now have Sun Pantheon and Homerus. We can see that they have different jobs. Maybe on the outskirts, we actually don't have a lot of different population. Here's one of our cities, and we can see that we have Achillean, and we have Vagabond tribes, and they have different religions to our main one. So here's our main Sun Pantheon. Here are the Stasima. The color represents happiness. The darker the green, the happier they are. And we can see that over in the corner we have the realm type, or the realm name, what realm it's a part of. A distance from the capital. So here is the actual city itself, and I think if we click maybe here, oh no, but it's kind of showing us its neighboring cities. So these are 2 from a neighboring enemy, and these are 2 from us. The control level, the average happiness, the development, the wealth output, and the number of soldiers that it generates per turn. The other thing to note is the terrain types. So we have desert, we have necropolis, we have swamp, we have plains, We have jungles. There might be more. I'm not actually too sure. There should be mountains. There is a mountain. So after a while, you'll actually begin to pick them up easily enough. And with all that, we should now be able to start looking at the information that we have. So again, here is how many of our victory goals we have captured. At the moment, 0 out of 1 for a bronze medal. We have 475 wealth, and we're making, from all of the jobs, 113. We have 300 soldiers, that's not much of an army. And from all of the jobs, we are making per turn plus 254. And it is turn 1 of 500. Now, while we're dealing with the army size, we can see here on the rival cities, they have a banner above them with 5 empty slots. And this one has 4 filled, that one has 4 filled, that one has 4 filled. I imagine, and it's only going to tell us that for our neighbors. That is a representation of their military strength in comparison to ours. If it's down here, then that means we are vastly superior. If it's up here, it means they're vastly superior. So our neighbors, let's call them neighbors instead of enemies, our neighbors have vastly more troops than we have at the moment. So now we can start to look at our actions. So our first action is to attack. Attempt to capture a city by force. If the target is part of another realm, they will have a chance to defend. So if we were to attack here, or here, or here, they would have a chance to defend. These independent regions, however, in grey, would not have an attempt to defend. And defend is an actual action in and of itself. So if the AI was to attack us, we would have to either decide whether or not we wanted to defend the city and give up our turn, or take a different action. And they would automatically take the city. If a city is attacked and it is not defended, it will fall to the attacker. We can see with the attack that it's basically going to kill a number of troops. So if I was to click on attack, at the moment I do not have the forces to attack anywhere. To attack here, I would lose 340. And it's telling me that my attack has plus 40 against deserts. We have plus 0 against the necropolis. And we have plus 40 against deserts. That's the only thing that we can attack at the moment. Plus 10 against plains. And 0 against these regions. This gives a chance of a breakthrough. So if you attack an enemy and they defend, 9 times out of 10, the defense will be successful. However, if you have a vastly superior composition that is designed for attacking that type of terrain, there is a chance that you will win a breakthrough and take the region. Now at the moment, if we had a few more troops and we could start attacking these areas, this enemy would simply defend, and our army would get wiped out, weakening our positions so that we wouldn't be able to defend, and they would come in and take everything. What we would basically need to do is get enough forces together that we could start a protracted campaign to whittle down their forces, and eventually break through and take a group of regions. So the actual process of a war and proceeding towards a victory condition is quite interesting, and there's a bit of strategic thinking behind it. But those are our attack and defense operations, and I might do a few of those now in a moment. Or, like I said, head on over and watch the campaign on Maniacal R&D to get a better idea of how this all plays together. Our third option is trade. Now, when we click on trade, it's going to show not independent. We can't trade with independent regions. We can trade with neighboring regions, and it's going to show us a number that we will get, an amount of wealth that we and the person we trade with will get by conducting that trade. That's also going to help increase trust. So we might want to do that with a neighbor that doesn't like us very much, but that we maybe don't want to go to war with. So we'd probably have to go to war with these guys, but let's say we decide we don't want either of those two victory conditions. We want all the rest. We're going to try and placate these guys. We might start trading with them to generate money. Money is going to be used for pretty much all of the other actions that are here on the screen. So troops are used to attack and defend, And wealth is going to be used for all of these other actions. After trade, our next action is to spy, to infiltrate a city in an attempt to gain secrets. So again, if we click on spy, it's going to tell us the cost, and it's going to tell us the chance of success. So a 45% chance of success, a 30% chance of success, there's a 50, and most of the rest are 30s. And that is the inverse of the lowest happiness in the settlement. So here, it's 120 gold for a 30% chance of success. And if we click on the settlement, and if we look at the happiness of the units, the lowest happiness is 70. So that's 100% minus 70 is 30% chance of success. Now, the first time that you successfully carry out a spy operation in a city, a little ear will appear there. The second time, a second ear. The third time, a third ear. On the fourth time that you carry out a successful spy operation, so when you carry out a spy operation in a city that has 3 ears underneath it, you will carry out a bloodless coup and seize control of the settlement without needing to fight for it. If you attack a settlement that has ears under it, so you know some secrets, you have basically positioned some loyal retainers there, that will increase the chance of a breakthrough. So if you attack and you have 1, 2, or 3, that will greatly increase the chance that even if the enemy defends, you will still manage to take the settlement. So if you end up with a lot of money, it could be, or if you have nothing else to do, it could be worth clicking on the spy option, taking a look around, and weighing up, is 80 gold a good expense for a 30% chance of a success? Of course, as they start to take regions, we could see, I know we have a couple of regions that are unhappy. This region here, I believe these guys are at 57 happiness. So I think that would be about a 45% chance of success for our enemy if they were to try and attack there. So as you incorporate regions, or as the enemy incorporates regions that become unhappy because their religious beliefs, their sect or ritual policies are being suppressed, then that will cause them to be unhappy and give you a better chance of spying. Now, what do we do with people who are unhappy? We could conscript them into the army. So we're getting 254 troops per turn. On our next turn, we're going to have 500. However, if we wanted more, we could conscript. And this would conscript a random population. So if we were to conscript here, we would have 254 plus 120 extra on the next turn. This is something you might want to do in regions of low happiness to get rid of unhappy population. The number that you get is linked to the control. So how much control is in a region. So what we could do is just increase the control. So increase the control here or increase the control here and then conscript, and you'll get even more forces. The problem is that by increasing the control, you decrease the happiness, which increases the chance of a revolt or increases the chance that the enemy can use their spy actions. Next option is fortify. Now we can technically fortify anywhere that we want to, but the best places to fortify would be on the border against your enemies, because when they attack, it's going to impose a penalty on them. So if I hover over this again, for a duration make it more expensive to attack a city. The attacker must spend 30% more soldiers, while the defender does not. The chance of breakthrough is not affected. The next option below that then is support. So that's the one that I've clicked at the moment. And what this will do is it will make operations or admin decisions in all adjacent locations cheaper. So if I was to place it here for 297, for 9 turns, the cost of conscripting, fortifying, displacing, appeasing, asserting, or developing in this region, in this region, in this region, and in this region would decrease. Now, another way of getting more money and dealing with unhappiness is the displace action. So it will attempt to displace the least happiest population in a city and push them away from the capital. So something that you could do is, if you have free space in cities surrounding the capital, what you could do is displace in the capital. And if you have very happy people there, they will move out and take up jobs and population in the surrounding areas. You could try and displace happy people to the edges of your territory or the edges of your empire if there are unhappy people there. Or you could attempt to displace unhappy people on the edges of your empire. So if we were to do it here, the least happiest population here would attempt to move away from the capital, so they would try and move in this direction. They would try and leave our empire, and we would gain money for that. I'm not actually too sure if it gives us the exact sum of money. So it doesn't, but I know that there's I think it's a static sum of money that you get for displacing somebody out of your empire completely. So there's a couple of different interesting strategies that can be used with displace. Like I said, you could try to push your happy faction out to regions of low happiness, or completely get rid of unhappy people. And of course, like I said, it's going to displace the least happiest community, so you could use that if you want to get rid of a certain type of a faction, if you want to actually demote them. So if we wanted to make these guys more prominent so that we could get their troops, their flaxmen, we could try, every time the population grows, it's going to be a random one of the existing population units that are here. So we could try to introduce changes to the ritual practices to promote stasima, make these guys unhappy, displace them, and then these guys would have a higher chance of growing. Now, if we have unhappy people on the edges of our empire, then they are targets for our enemies to conduct spy operations to try and seize our territories peacefully. Damn them to hell. So what we could do is we could try and appease the least happy of our factions. So this will increase the happiness of every community in a city by 40. So quite often this is something that I might do if I seize control of a new region. I might do this just to bring their happiness up, the way that the enemy doesn't send in spies to retake the region or to give them the chance of a breakthrough. You might also want to do this before using the assert operation, which is the next one down. So if we actually just click appease at the moment, it will tell us what the least happiest faction is. So there's a 53 there, there's a 62, and the assert action is going to decrease the happiness, but it's going to increase the control. And we would use that if we want to conscript. So you could appease a region, then assert, then conscript. That's maybe a tactic that you might use. And of course, you might put a support down first of all. If you conquer a group of new regions, if we were to conquer this entire area here, we might drop a support and start appeasing these areas, or developing these areas. Increase a city's maximum population by 1. So if we were to click on develop, we see here in our capital that it has room for 3 population to grow at the moment. This has room for 1. This has room for 5, and it will cost 1,200 gold if we want to increase. If we desperately wanted to increase this place, we could drop a support here, we could drop a support here. To decrease that cost, that's going to be expensive in and of itself. But quite often, when we'll say this region here has 1 empty space, when that is filled, it will say 0, and it will not grow beyond that number. It is possible for the development to fall as a result of a certain enemy units. So the Great Tyrant, the T-Rex, that can actually destroy development. Settlements can also be hit by earthquakes. So if an earthquake was to hit, the development might drop, and you might end up with a region having a development of -1 or -2. And if that ever happens, the population will eventually fall. it will migrate. Now, I'm not too sure will it migrate to another one of your neighboring regions, or if it will migrate out of your kingdom. But in general, you do every once in a while want to look around and click on your settlements to make sure that there's actually room for them to grow, because that's how you get more troops, that's how you get more money to do more operations and to attack more units. And then pass. If you ever find yourself, I haven't done it yet in any of the, I think, 4 campaigns that I've done, I've never found myself in a scenario where I've had nothing to do. And so finally, just to show you what a turn actually looks like, we're on turn 1 out of 500, we have very little money. I'm going to trade with our neighbors here. So I basically click on trade, or 3 on the keyboard. I'm going to click on this settlement. And there you go. We're told that they fortified that same settlement, so they're preparing either for an attack from us or from the enemy down here. These guys also fortified. This region has dropped a support, so it's probably going to start trying to develop or appease the surrounding regions. We have a support up there. There's an assert here by these guys, but they're not on our border. There's been a support over here. And the Sun Gazers have started conscripting. And if we take a look at the Sun Gazers, they are cautious towards us. So that could be a threat that they are preparing to attack us. We can also see that our army grew by 254, and now the surrounding regions, which had 4 units over their capital city, indicating that they were vastly stronger than us, that has now fallen. So that might also indicate to us that we are gaining troops faster than the surrounding enemies. We're now actually stronger than these guys. Maybe that's one of the reasons that they started fortifying this region. So if we were to attack, we don't need to declare war. We don't need to make any declarations. We could attack them on this turn and trade with them on the next. We've just traded. We could attack right now. There's no declarations like that. There's no different stances. There's going to be no end to any wars. All you have are the options down the left-hand side to wage war and claim victory in Oradros. So there you go. That has been a lightning quick tour, I hope, of high strategy Oradros. I've kind of gone in depth into some of the mechanics. If there are any of them that still aren't clear, do drop a question below in the comment section. The first time that I played this, there were a couple of those actions that I did not take. I didn't use support at all. I wasn't really too sure when I should have used support or what it was even for. I wasn't really too sure what displace did. There is a steep learning curve to the game, but I think I had 90% of it down within about the first 30 moves. I think support, displace, the army composition is a bit frightening the first time that you see it, and the rituals. That's basically the toughest parts of the game. And also remembering to go and set your diplomatic status with your opponents. But I really enjoyed this game, and I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm looking forward to getting back into it and trying some of the tougher factions. I'm finding that games are quite different one game to the next. I played a couple of games. I've actually only played as Klastos so far. The very first time that I played, I thought, you know what, this isn't too bad. I've picked it up, it's easy enough. I'm going to play one more game as them. I'm going to win easily, because I know what I'm doing this time, and then I'll move on to one of the harder factions. And then on the next game, I got the living daylights kicked out of me, because the neighbouring kingdoms played in a much different way to the first time. So I said this on my other video as well, that it's a bit like CK3, you're going to start off with the same neighbours, you're going to start off with the same victory goals, you're going to start off in the exact same conditions from one game to the next if you're playing with the same faction. But depending on how your enemies act, how your neighbours act, depending on the success or failure of your attacks, you're going to see dramatically different progress to your war goals. So I really enjoy this. I think there's tremendous replayability in it. There's 40 factions. I'm not too sure if once you win the game with one faction, if you'd want to come back and play with them again. But no, I really enjoyed this. I think it's a really interesting abstraction, purification of the grand strategy. I do wish there was a cat that I could name Pangerbone. That's really the only major problem that I have. There is a link below in the description to the Steam page. I would most certainly recommend that you check this out. I mean, come on, there's dinosaurs. There's dinosaurs. How can you not check this out? Do check out the video that I put up on the other channel, the campaign, the playthrough of a campaign, to see how all of those actions look when put together. And thank you very much for joining me on this episode, and I hope to see you again as we do battle on the backs of dinosaurs.